At Harvard University, Secretary of State John Kerry appeared to draw a link between the wave of violence and increased Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank.
Unless we get going, a two-state solution could conceivably be stolen from everybody. And there's been a massive increase in settlements over the course of the last years. Now you have this violence because there's a frustration that is growing, and a frustration among Israelis who don't see any movement. So I look at that and I say, if that did explode, and I pray and hope it won't, and I think there are options to prevent that, but we would inevitably be, at some point, we're going to have to be engaged in working through those kinds of difficulties. So better to try to find the ways to deal with it before that happens than later.
That was Secretary of State John Kerry speaking Tuesday. Gideon Levy, could you respond to what he said and give us a sense of what the mood there is?
Unfortunately, I must say that John Kerry's declaration is rather hypocritic. The Americans could have prevented a long time ago. The Americans know exactly how to prevent it. If they really wanted to put an end to the occupation, the Israeli occupation would have come to its end long time ago. This policy of only serving carrots to Israel, of flattering to Israel again and again, is now decades long and never worked, never ever worked. And the Americans never really tried the alternative path of putting pressure on Israel in order to bring Israel back to the international law, back to legal and order, back to morality. And now John Kerry is saying that this can be prevented and should be prevented. Where were you in the last 7 years, in the last 48 years, when Israel is so much depending on the United States like never before, and you just gave Israel a carte blanche to go wild in Gaza, in the West Bank, again and again, build settlements, go for wars, and never try to push Israel and to put an end to all this. So really, with all the respect to John Kerry's good intentions, this is not the way to deal with Israel after all those years.
But Israeli government officials, Gideon Levy, if you could give us a sense of how they've responded to remarks made by U.S. officials. The defense minister, Moshe Yaalon, for example, accused Washington of completely misreading the situation on the ground in Israel-Palestine. The public security minister called the U.S. remarks foolish.
Yeah, they got all the same message from the Prime Minister's office, now to condemn the United States. In the last years, they found out that condemning the United States doesn't take any price. Israel can talk to and about the American administration as if Israel is the superpower and the United States is just like one of those small countries which depend on Israel. They allow themselves what no country in the world allows themselves vis-à-vis the United States, going and trying to sabotage an international agreement with Iran in the American Congress against the American administration, things which are unheard of by any other country. Israel learned in the recent years that they are possible, and not only possible, they are productive and they are working. So sure, Israel will attack now the Americans for any kind of criticism.
I want to bring
the American will not punish Israel.
I want to bring
for
Diana
this.
Buttu into